Okay, so I wanted to make a little quick video of my BX mod. It's a 23S and it comes with the backhoe. I disconnected it right now. But I installed LED lights, you can see there, on the left and the right, and on the top. These were on sale at Princess Auto for $22. And the way that I designed it is I built the bracket that goes on this and at the top right there, which allows me to have the LED lights point forward, or I can turn it all the way back and then I can twist it to point down. So now they're all facing downward. Same thing for the light up at the top there. I'll get up and show you what I had to do because I wanted to be able to point it down properly. I had to make a square bracket all the way around so that I could put a pivot pin at the top, and this will allow me to rotate it to the left and to the right. You can see a little bit better if I go all the way up there. So if I want to go to the left, I can go, well, as far as the cable will allow me to stretch. So this is almost 90 degrees to the right, and then I can go almost 90 degrees to the left, depending on which way you're looking at. And then also I can point downwards to the rear, or I can flip it around and point it downwards to the front. As you can see, I can point it down or horizontal. This is about the limit of how far up I can, but I don't really ever see any need for pointing it up. So when I do snow plowing, for example, I don't really need the front lights, so I'll have both my left and my right pointing to the rear and the center as well. But let's say if I'm hauling dirt or whatever, I'll mostly use the front. So the issue I ran into was that the way they designed these lights is as soon as you put something in the bucket and you lift it up a little bit off the ground, the bucket is right in front of the lights. And then the light shines into the bucket and reflects back to you, and if it's dark, your eye's pupils adjust, and so you can't really see anything. So you either have to keep it almost down to the ground, which is a pain in the butt if it's bumpy, or you have to raise it up above the lights, which is dangerous if you have a load and it can tip over the backhoe. Unfortunately, this was my backhoe and that exact same thing happened. So I raised the bucket to see, and then I just hit the curb of the ditch just a little bit, and boom, she went. And I wasn't going that fast, and I was being careful, but it was darker at night. I couldn't see properly. Now luckily, this was before I had installed the side lights, so it actually landed on my rollover bar and on the bucket and on the two wheels, so there was zero damage at all. We just had to find a neighbor with a pickup truck to pull it back up. So anyways, so that's what the lights look like. And then for the winter, I got me an old snowblower, and the way that they have the chute operated is with a winch. Now the winch goes around the drum here and then around the chute, and I had to find a way to hook up this winch to my tractor. And the way that I did it is I bought a switch on Amazon, a winch switch, just like this, and made a bracket. This is just a 1 inch by 1 inch, actually it might be 3/4 by 3/4 inch square tube, and a 1/4 inch bar. I think this is 1 inch wide. Now welded it together, painted it, put a couple of bolts through the pre-drilled holes, and this is rock solid. Like, this doesn't move at all. I can move the entire, let me see if I can move the entire tractor by wiggling on this switch. So this is really solid. And so then what I did is I actually, you know what, I'll cut it off right here and I'll show you the wiring in a bit. Okay, so I removed the screen here. I'm going to show you how I wired everything up on the inside. The very first thing is let's deal with the LED lights first. Okay, so I ran the cables down here along our ROPS and around and I was able to go all the way through here. Now this was a pain in the butt because it was really, really tight. I had to put a fiberglass stick, like one of those electrical fishing poles, and put it through, and then I had to go to crawl underneath it and have a hook and pull the string down, and that way I was able to attach the wires and then pull the wires through to the back. Then I routed them up along the existing one and underneath this connector here, all the way up. And for the right hand side, I went down and around. Now I don't like it as much because I don't really like the exposed wires. I know some people ran it inside of the frame. I just didn't have time to do all of that. So for now, that's what, you know, it's gonna have to do. And then hopefully at a later time I can hide these a little bit better. We'll see how that goes. So I ran them all the way up there and attached them to the LED lights. Same thing for the switch for the winch. That's where this third cable comes from. Same thing, I ran it around and then around back there. So if I take this off, I actually have good access and it's not in the way because I tied it. I used lots of zip ties to put it away nicely. So under the hood, what I did is I went to Princess Auto and I got a $7 12-volt switching relay. Even though it didn't need to be a switching relay, a regular relay would have done. This one here goes between 30 and 40 amps, and if it's not activated, it's off on the 30, and as soon as I turn on the ignition, the power goes to the relay and turns on the relay and allows power to flow through. The way that I tied into it is I actually looked at another video on YouTube, and this plug here is the one that goes to the main switch, and I found the one that activates power as soon as I turn on the ignition, and it was the orange and yellow wire, and I just tied into that with the white wire that goes to the relay, and the black wire goes to the black terminal of the battery. This is really hard to see, but I put this yellow connector here, goes into all the grounds that I need. Those are the 3 grounds for the LED lights, as well as the ground for the relay. Then what I did is actually came with 3 light switches, the LEDs. Each LED came with 1 light switch. So I drilled the holes and took all the red cables and tied them all together into the red cable of the LED. So basically the first step that happens is I turn on the ignition, which activates the relay, which allows power from the positive side of the terminal to go to these switches. Now, I still need to turn the switches on if I want the light to go on, and I wanted to wire it in such a way so that my kids, you probably saw them running around, that they don't hop up here and turn on the lights without the ignition, and it'll drain the battery. So now these switches only operate, they only have power if the ignition switch is turned on over there. From these switches, I have the black wires that run all the way down, and where I ran them through is through this metal bracket, and then through this hole up here. There you go. Comes out right there, and then it goes underneath the Kubota, and I'm going to see if I can put this tractor up on a ramp and show you what it looks like underneath it. Okay, so this is going to be a little tricky to show. So this is where it comes down from the front, and I ran it along this wire, and there's the fuel filter, and then around the corner, then all the way up there. Let's see if that will show up. There we go. So now the really tricky thing was that there's a fan right here, and the cables go really, really close to that fan. I'm not sure if that will show here. There, you can see how close. So if I had the wires go to the right hand side of that hydraulic line, it would have a potential for that fan to rub up against them. So I had to tie it to the left, and the way that I did that is from the outside, and I'll show you in a second. So I ended up taking off the wheel, and that gave me a little bit better access, and you can see it coming up there. and it goes all the way underneath the fender or whatever. I think it's the case of the seat up here. So there was not very much space at all, but I had to fish it through over there, and then where it came out is right over there. Now you can see there's the big fat wire there on the left. That's for my winch, and the smaller wires, they were on the right hand side, and they're for the LEDs and for the winch switch. So for the winch and the switch for the winch, that was another tricky one. What I ended up doing is getting a 250 amp 12 volt relay right here on Amazon. I think it's about 30 bucks. And these two wires right here, the green and the black, they go right over here to the switch. Now there's another one, a red one, and that one I also tied it into the same one that I have that original solenoid. So when I turn on the ignition, the solenoid brings power not just to these three little switches, but it also brings the power to the winch switch over here. And then depending on whether I go in or out, it activates this solenoid, which then the output is either one way or the other way to the big fat wires that I also ran all the way through here, and again through that hole right there, and then underneath the backhoe through there, you can see it, and up here. And I put one of those connectors on it. I bought those on Amazon. I got 4, I think, for 20 bucks. So I put one on here, and then I put the other one on my winch. Oh, sorry, the winch of the snow plow. So then all I need to do is plug this one into that one over there with my lovely little assistant.
Sorry to interrupt, but supper's ready.
Okay, I'll go have supper in a sec. Now, I had a bunch of leftover wire. This was actually, I was trying to find good solid wire, and I couldn't find anything for a decent price. So I just ended up buying a 20-foot booster cable. And this is 4-gauge wire right there, which is way more than I need. I think it can handle like, well, as much power as I need for that little winch anyways. So, but I had some leftover, so I wrapped it around here so I can actually take this off and unwrap it. And I probably have another 10 feet or so in case I ever need to have the winch somewhere else, or if I need extra cable somewhere. As for the way that I suspended or held up this solenoid, I took a 2" by 2" by 1/8" angle iron, and I bent it. So this is about 135 degrees, and I drilled and tapped 4 holes for these 4 screws right there. There's 2. There we go. And then the other part of the angle, I drilled and tapped into the frame here. This is big, solid, probably 3/16 thick material. And this solenoid does not move. I mean, again, I can move the whole backhoe by wiggling on that. And then all I had to do is get some crimp on battery terminal wire connectors and crimp the ends here and here, and the one that goes from this end down to the negative of the battery, and another one from the positive to the battery. And so now I have the full big fat wire connection directly from the battery all the way directly to the back wire right here, activated by this switch through this solenoid. And that's how I did the winch connection for my Kubota tractor. So we're gonna have to see in the winter how this works out. I should have plenty of lights, should have plenty of power for the rotating the chute for the snowblower. So all in all, I'm pretty happy the way that it turned out, but it was definitely tricky to run those wires all the way through that tiny little gap, because I didn't want them getting caught anywhere with the mechanical parts that move up and down and could possibly chaff it. Another trick Or another thing that I did is I used lots and lots of zip ties. Like every few inches I tied it down real good, so I don't want to have any of these wires wiggling. Oh yeah, you can see as I put the ROPS up, it just stretches these out a little bit, and I left enough room for that. So I hope this helps someone. Good luck with your mod. Leave me a comment. I'd love to hear how you did it.